mentorship in real estate is typically a half-baked idea with no follow-through, a loose go-get-'em pep talk, and no accountability or follow-up. But with these two guys right here, Paul Haitayan and Brian Blalock, our agent support mentor and our incredible sales leader and sales manager, we use the 3 C's. Yeah. Brian, I'm going to let you explain all this. It's clarity, communication, commitment. Explain how you implement this from the bottom up.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about in past talks about that 5 disciplines that a real estate agent really needs to establish in the first 90 days. Right. So, that's more for the real estate agent coming in, but there's 2 sides to this, right? So we have to have accountability ourselves as mentors to be able to provide a structured environment for them to establish those disciplines, right? So the three we call them the 3 C's, right? So it's clarity, communication, and commitment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about clarity, and then I'll pass it off to Paul about communication. But when we talk about clarity in a mentorship program, that's establishing clear boundaries and a structure around what is the agent looking to accomplish. And that's in a form of a business plan. Business plans don't need to be complicated, right? We have a 1-page business plan. We walk our agents through it. It's really setting goals for what you're looking to do in your first 90 days, your first 180 days, and then chunking that down into monthly goals, weekly goals, and then most importantly, daily goals, so that you start with some income producing activities, which ultimately is going to lead to consistent cash flow. So making sure that we have a very clear vision as to what the agent is looking to accomplish, because everybody has their different goals. We want to make sure we custom fit it for them, and then we guide them through the process. So that's the first C, clarity. Paul, you want to kind of touch on a little bit on communication?
Yeah, so absolutely. So we've always shared this with communication. All of us being in the management, slot, we're still in the trenches. I mean, we're still making calls with people. We have 2 role play calls as per, our agents, where, the morning wasn't so great. So we have one at 8:45. Then we have one at 11, and I'm on Tom's every morning listening, and then I'll run the same one, at 11 o'clock. Competitive offer situations. So we have just a class for that, where we're going through all the different scenarios with all the client, with all the agents, getting it across them to, get across the finish line for their clients. And then we do that with listing appointments. So they have to actually present to the team. It can be a little bit stressful, but that's where they want to practice.
Yeah, and what's important is we got to get granular with it. It isn't just throw an idea out there and say, hey, go do this.
No.
It's not only this is what you need to learn, and these are the steps it's going to take to get there, because we talk a lot about implementation in this business. Agents have a tough time implementing ideas. What we do is we put the structure together and make sure it's more granular. So
right.
spot on with that.
Yeah, and granular, really just like being there with them and going through every single step that they have to do. And if it takes 2 or 3 times, it takes 2 or 3 times. We just practice it out. And then we even have them, kind of rep it out with themselves.
Yeah.
Practice. It's not, being on the call 5 days a week sometimes isn't enough.
Yeah.
So they need to just rep it out with a partner, and that's what we do. And it really works well. And the blessing is to see these people and our agents go through those different parts of communication and getting everything done the way they should be as we were taught, exactly. and sharing that information and being here and accessible and accountable to them is huge. Yeah. And that's one of the best gifts we can give, as we've always stated.
Yeah. Well, well said. Communication is really key, but, all this is great if you don't have the commitment of the management team and the leadership team.
Well, and that's, again, a very bottom-up thing. I think Nick Saban said high achievers don't like mediocre people, and mediocre people don't like high achievers. And then there's a reason for that, because they're not committed. And when commitment, that comes with integrity, right? And that's one of our core values here. This is not being honest. That's a given in any workplace. It's following through on the stuff you say you're going to do. Right. Some people say they want to be held accountable, and then they don't like what that looks like. And that's okay. It may not be the right organization for them. But when you're committed to, hey, here was the goal you set, and we're going to come back 3-4 weeks later, whatever the time frame is, and then look at the actual numbers. You're tracking and measuring, because otherwise you're just guessing the entire time. And that's where, when tracking and measuring is going to help you improve it, whenever you track that, then you go through and look at those things and all right, my goal was to get 5 sales in the last 60 days. I got 4. And here's where I could have done a little better. Well, that's where the communication follows through and the clarity, because you had the plan. You know where you can get a little better. There's that bottleneck that's getting identified, but that's got to be a regular routine, because when it comes to commitment, there's a couple different levels, right? There's the education, which most people will do, or at least they'll attempt to do. They kind of figure out what's going on. Then there's the taking action. Now, you talked about the implementation gap. Some people stop right there. A lot of folks will start to take action. It may not be the right action, but it's action. But then there's inspection, and you have to look at the results and understand what's going on. And then there's the recommitment to the stuff you learned the first time, but maybe you didn't get it all, right? Like you got 3/5 of the listing appointment. Maybe your body language wasn't good. Maybe you missed some pre-appointment steps. And then there's the obviously being open-minded to coaching and being willing to accept feedback. And that's what commitment's all about. I mean, Brian gives me feedback 24/7, right? Paul gives me feedback. I mean, we all talk together because we're one team, and that's what a team really does, and that's what mentorship looks like. So we just broke down a very serious concept in a few minutes here. Anything we missed that you guys feel like we need to talk about when it comes to actual mentorship?
Well, when we talk about commitment, right? So if you look at a true mentorship program where you have a mentor and a mentee, the mentee is literally side by side with the mentor, learning a craft, right? So it could be, I have a big background in the trade. So, it's a technician who's literally right next to a senior technician, learning how to do the skills. This guy right here is on the floor with the agents, 500-600 calls a week, booking listing appointments, and then grabbing agents who need to learn that skill set, showing them how to do the presentation and bringing them on the presentation and showing them real life scenarios with a client. Paul does it every day when there's a pending sale. We have a structured program. If somebody is struggling with a situation that came up either while you're writing an offer or after it's executed, he's right there on the phone walking them through all the options that they have. I'll sit in on a buyer consultation with a new agent.
So just this week doing that.
Just working through, showing them what is a strategy meeting that you could set up. Because you could tell them to go do it, but then they have to implement it, and they need to see, and they need to have a structure to show them physically, like, hey, we're gonna do this together, and you're gonna handle a portion of it, I'm gonna handle a portion of it, but in the end, you're gonna get a better picture as to how these are done, and that's the commitment that we have for the people on our team. So, making sure that we clarify the goals, making sure that we communicate the process, which is extremely important. And then having the commitment to be there for them when they need us.
Well, you know what that does when you actually walk people through it together? One, it builds their confidence up. And this is such a mindset business where people are deathly afraid of doing these things, or they think the scripts don't work, or they think what we're talking about is all nonsense. Now, the reality is there's a lot of teams out there, and there's a lot of like real estate coaches. They've never sold a home in their life, or they're not doing things at a high level. Brian's got 37 years of management experience before I met him. And that was 4 or 5 years ago at this point. Paul was a business owner for 30 plus years, right? I've been doing this 25 years myself. So when you're taking people on these appointments and showing them, hey, I'm not just saying this, I'm doing it. That gets the belief and that gets the confidence. And I think that's, you need to have a little bit of swagger in this business.
You do.
And not ego's not a good thing. Swagger's a little different. That's confidence in yourself that you're able to deliver. And the commitment to still doing that, because I see a lot of team leaders, they want to get out. They don't want to do all that stuff. They want to get into management. One of the reasons we work well together is because I like getting in the trenches and we're playing each other's strengths, because that's what a great mentorship program does. The worst manager tries to do everything themselves. The experts, they focus on 1, 2, or 3 things they're really good at.
Yeah, and if you're not seeing the results, you have to really take a step back and look at the organization that you're with. This is about being in the right culture. If you put yourself around people that want to be successful, you're going to be successful, and that's what we stride on. We have a written plan for everybody. We can tell them what they're going to see the first year that they're going to be with us, and we have a structured process of how we run our mentorship program, and it's all documented, it's written, and we have the results that prove it. So I think that's it in a nutshell.
Well, and we're always trying to make it better, right? Like when we started off, I was kind of running the whole thing. That's not sustainable.
Right.
We brought Brian in. Brian came through the organization. This was not like some outside hire, which I think is really valuable. Right. Paul has a skill set that I think is better than both of ours, and we're playing to our strengths. And that's about having a strong organization. And we said it at the beginning. High achievers don't like mediocre people, and mediocre people don't like high achievers. And that's where your environment should be able to get you to where you want to go.